call the meeting to order. Please stand and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, may I have a motion for approval of the minutes of the meetings held April 22nd and May 1st, please?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. No one wishing to address the board. And a motion to approve the agenda, please.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. And we're on to the good news report. Deanne.
Good evening. Educating emerging leaders and entrepreneurs. In a nutshell, that's the purpose of an organization known as DECA. And the organization is gaining popularity at Lincoln High School and putting South Dakota on the map, as our schools are part of schools across the country and across the world, really, developing young leaders in the areas of marketing, finance, hospitality, and management. A few weeks ago, we had students from all Sioux Falls high schools participating in DECA's International Career Development Conference. They were among 18,000 high school students, advisors, business leaders, and alumni gathered to develop knowledge and skills for college and career. Tonight, we have two students from Lincoln High School, along with our business education teacher and advisor, Michael Jones. They're here to tell us a little bit about their accomplishments at the conference. So, girls?
Hello, I'm Jenna Sheriff, and I've been in DECA all 3 years of high school. And so Arij and I, my partner, we competed in a team event called Business Law and Ethics. And so a little bit about that is we were given a scenario, and within that scenario, we were given many terms from the business law and ethics world. And so to prepare, before we traveled to the conference, we met up a few times outside of school, and we discussed how we would answer those performance indicators if we so got them. We also took practice tests because there is a 100-question multiple choice test that we must take when we arrive at the conference.
Yep, so as Jenna was saying, there's a 100-question multiple choice exam, and so the first thing we did was we had a day of competition where we completed that exam. Our scores were then averaged together, and that was worth 50% of our overall score. The next day, we went into a role play scenario, which was worth the other 50% of our score. So we were given a situation, and we were given 30 minutes to prepare and see how we would respond to a particular issue. After those 30 minutes were over, we went and we presented to a judge for 15 minutes where we assumed the roles, and we basically presented our presentation to him. So coming out of that role play, Jen and I were pretty confident. We think that it was the best that we'd ever done, but we didn't really expect that we'd make it onto stage. So the next morning at awards, when they called our name, it wasn't a shock just to us or to other Lincoln students, but basically everybody from South Dakota and everyone that had competed, because it was the first time a team from South Dakota had made it to finals.
And so with making it to finals, right after we were on stage and received our medal, we had to go straight into competition. So we went and got our competition prep time. We got back into our business casual attire, and then we waited in line. We had 30 minutes of prep again, and then we had 15 more minutes to present to a judge. And so we did that all over like we had done the previous day. But the only thing that was different was our test score still carried over. And so we went into that. It was a little bit more stressful and high pressure in that role play than it was the day before. Unfortunately, we did not make it to top 10, but we did make it to top 20, which is nothing that another South Dakota team had ever accomplished before. Thank you.
Thank you.
Obviously very polished speakers, as you can tell. In addition to that, Lincoln also received recognition for another piece with DECA, and I'm going to have Mr. Jones come up and tell us about that, about how membership has increased at his school and really what he thinks the value of DECA does for his students.
Hi, my name is Michael Jones from Lincoln High School, as she said. We have DECA in our three high schools in Harrisburg, and Lincoln High School has seen the largest growth here in the last couple of years. And to put into concept what these girls accomplished, we're really competing in South Dakota as a after-school organization, whereas up in Canada and in a number of schools, they have DECA as a class for all 4 years. So to have these two girls compete in a team and make it to the top 20 out of 164 teams that competed is very significant. Probably half of the winning teams come from Canada, where DECA is a 4-year program of study. So it's really significant, and I'm really impressed with them and their juniors. So next year, hoping for better things. So thank you.
You have a question. What do you attribute your growth to?
Really, it's the kids. It really is the kids.
Just more interested?
Well, the last couple of years during our Patriot Power Days, which is in August, the kids have set up a table, and I'm generally busy with the school store, trying to get that started. But the kids have really taken it upon themselves the last 3 or 4 years. I've had really, really good, solid kids that have got a hold of those ninth graders, because it's so terribly important to have the kids buy into their new school and have them involved in something. And if it's not athletics, DECA is an alternative for them. And the unique thing about DECA is that I've had kids go to schools, and interview at schools for college, and they've come back and they said, geez, the 4 years that we spent at DECA doing our role play competitions really made them appreciate how to conduct themselves as an adult in an adult environment, in a professional environment. So I really do believe in DECA. So
Good example right there.
Yes, sir.
Where was the competition held at?
It was tough this year. It was in Orlando.
Oh, wow.
So
That sounds terrible.
yeah, it was horrible. There was 22,000 kids there. So it's the largest growth, or the largest gathering they've had at a DECA, and they call it ICDC, International Career Development Conference, that they've had so far since DECA has been around. Generally, it's been about 20,000. This year, there's 22,000 kids.
Sure. And is there a season for DECA, or it's all year round?
In the fall, we have, the United States is broken into 4 different 4 different areas, and we're in the northern area. And so we go to a conference in the fall. Next year, it's going to be in Minneapolis. Last year it was in Detroit. And then that's kind of a gathering of the central region, we call it, where kids are introduced to DECA, what DECA is, and they're kind of given what the girls just explained to you. And then we have a state conference in February, and from that state conference, the kids qualify to go to the international conference.
Okay, interesting. Thank you.
Are there different types of the competition, or is it all team and it's all the same type of
Nope.
format?
It
Okay.
is individual and teams. So for the kids that want to compete, just individual, it's a condensed amount of time that they have. And then they also have team competitions, and there are, probably close to 80 different categories. Anything from food service to business law to marketing, and marketing is what I teach at Lincoln. So, but it's very vast to a lot of categories that we don't even do here in South Dakota, mechanics, that type of thing. So if you're interested in anything in the business arena, DECA has a category for you.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
Yes.
congratulations.
Yes, impressive.
Jenna?
I have a freshman starting next year at Lincoln, so watch out for him, okay? He needs an activity.
Well, he's got one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move on. No conflicts of interest tonight. Could I get a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Supplemental consent agenda, 9A, 1 and 2, claims to Sanford. If I could get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries with 2 abstentions, Board Member Mickelson and Board Member Ryder. 9B, approval of claims to Avera, please.
So moved.
Second?
All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. And that motion carries with one abstention, Board Member Parker. And we are on to the reports of the superintendent, Dr. Maher.
Thank you. We have two reports tonight. The first one is the 2019 Emergency Response Evacuation and Reunification Exercise Report. That comes to us from our Risk Management Department. Presentation tonight by Bob Bray.
Get all the technology up and running. Well, good evening. Thanks for the opportunity to bring you this report on the progress that we've made in planning and preparing for our reunification exercise, which will take place in October, on 8th of October next school year. As you can well imagine, the safety and security of our students is of paramount importance to us, and so is our relationship with our many partners, not only in first response, but the support agencies that will always be a part of any kind of emergency that takes place, not only in the community, but that might affect the Sioux Falls School District. So periodically, we want to conduct exercises as a multi-agency, multi-jurisdiction organization to not only test our systems, our policies, practices, and procedures, but to also ensure that we have that collaboration, that continuity between our organizations and our agencies, so that, God forbid, one of these horrific events takes place, we can do what our policies, practices, and procedures on paper say we can do. So as a system of systems, we, on a regular basis, as you're very familiar with, and maybe more importantly, our students are more familiar with, we conduct fire drills, we conduct lockdown drills, we conduct tornado drills, some of those dictated by state policy, but also by our school district practices as well. We are fortunate in having great support of our exec team, of our school board for these exercises, and ensuring that our students, our faculty, and even more importantly, our visitors, our guests at our schools, know that we can respond should we have an emergency. So why do we have this major event? The last time was in 2014. We're doing it now once again, since we've had some significant changes, some improvements based on those other exercises and events taking place, technology-wise, to ensure that we can have that kind of collaboration, that kind of coordination that's so necessary when one of these major kind of events takes place. You've seen them happen on national news. We hope that they never happen here, but we feel pretty confident that if they do happen, our team, and not only, again, of first responders and other agencies, but also here in the school district, will be able to respond and handle those emergencies very well, or as best as that can be expected. So just to show you a couple of slides here, if I can get everything to work. I don't know if you're seeing these slides or not here. There we go. So we've had a number of meetings collaborating with not only within the district, but again with those response agencies. We've got a couple other meetings yet to come to bring on board the hospitals, for example, and then we'll meet with the Emergency Operations Center group as well to see how many of those organizations want to participate in the exercise in October. So we've got a phased approach to the exercise. We're really kind of finalizing that first phase of the planning and preparing for the exercise. When we actually conduct the exercise, we'll start out with a simulated situation. We decided this year we'd use a lockdown event, pretty much the same kind of lockdown response at the school that we do on a regular basis, so that there won't be much change in notice for the students as they participate in that exercise. We'll take a little bit of a break, and then we'll segregate a group of students who volunteered to participate along with their parents. We'll transport them, evacuate to the reunification site, followed by then that phase 4, where we'll actually conduct the reunification at a reunification site, which is the Sioux Falls Convention Center and Arena. And following that, we'll conduct an after-action review to kind of gather up the good news, what went well, what didn't work quite as well as we'd like to see it, and then what improvements we need to make for the future. Our schedule of events, as you see here, will really begin about 9 in the morning on the 8th of October. That'll be kind of a preparation time. We'll start the actual exercise at 10. It'll take about 30 minutes to an hour for that exercise to be completed at the school. The students, the general population of the school will return back to their normal schedule. Those students who have been selected and volunteered to participate will be segregated, allowed to have their lunch, and then we'll move into that next phase of the exercise where we'll transport them by School Bus Inc. To the reunification site, just as we would if we had a real situation take place. Once they arrive there, we'll begin the reunification part of the exercise. And it's important to note that while the initial event is taking place, that active shooter or intruder is occurring, we're also mobilizing a lot of resources. So the incident management team here at the school district will be alerted. They'll be mobilized and begin to support the operation. Even for this exercise, we'll bring them into the exercise to focus their skills as well. The reunification branch, those individuals in the district that have been designated to actually conduct the reunification will be alerted. They'll be mobilized to report to the Arena Convention Center so that when the students arrive, they'll be ready to begin the process to actually conduct the reunification, where we bring students and parents or guardians back together. Throughout that process, we'll have some injects. We want to make sure that we stress some of the anomalies that might occur during that type of a situation. So we'll throw a couple additional scenarios at them, like a missing student, an injured student. We'll have a media event to take place as well. So we'll be able to work all those dynamics, all those systems that might be necessary to respond to this type of emergency. After that's all over with, working with our partners, we'll conduct what we call a hot wash, kind of gather the immediate thoughts. A couple of weeks later, we'll have a more formal process after action review, where we'll collect more specific information so we can update our policies, plans, practices, and procedures, and hopefully make it that much better for our preparation in the event that some kind of an emergency might take place. So with that, pretty much concludes my part of the presentation and what we're going to accomplish in October with this exercise. Are there any questions?
Mine's more of a comment. I just want to commend you and your team for, we're trying to stay ahead of issues and making sure we can best respond if an issue would ever occur. But I was reading in the Wall Street Journal today about how I think only 40% of the school districts in the country have a relationship with the SROs or the police departments in their community. And we have such a great relationship with our SROs, and that they're in our schools. And that's part to you and Dr. Maher and all that. So thank you very much. And they say that is one of the safest ways to keep our kids safe as well. So thank you.
Well, thank you for those comments. And I will, since we have an SRO sitting here too, I will pile on with that compliment, because we not only have a great relationship with our SROs, and they do a lot of things more than just respond, but also with the fire department, as they are in our schools on a pretty regular basis, all the first response agencies for that matter, but really with our county, city emergency organization, everybody knows each other. Our policies, plans, practices, and procedures mirror their actions, so that if an event should happen, everybody knows what to expect when they arrive at the scene, even with our technology. So we have that interoperability, not only with the technology, but with actions as well. But we wouldn't get there without the great leadership of our exec team here at the school district as well, to make sure that we get the time to conduct these activities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bob. Can I get a motion to acknowledge the report, please?
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? Kate and I have both been on the Safe Secure committee over our time on the board, and the proactive nature of what that committee does is what has impressed me. And when Bob came on as an employee of the district, that just stepped that up a notch. So I appreciate your work and dedication, Bob. So good stuff. Hopefully, we never have to implement it in its true need. So anything else? If not, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Post same sign. That motion carries.
Okay, our second report this evening is a data breach policy report. You have a policy that you will look at later. This is the information that will precede that policy. Here to present that information tonight from Information and Technology Services is Michael Christofferson.
Thank you, Dr. Maher. Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to provide detail of the recommendation for a policy regarding the data breach of personal or protected identifiable information. Tonight's report will provide the board detail about some of the risks we see in the cybersecurity space in the K-12 area, general security approaches and rules we follow to minimize and combat risk, and an overview of the recommended data breach policy along with the accompanying regulation. The goal of the Sioux Falls School District is to eliminate security incidents and avoid any breach or release of personal or protected identifiable information. And I'm going to refer to it as often as PII. It is important that we are vigilant in identifying cybersecurity risks potentially affecting K-12, reduce risks through the following best practice protocol, and train our end users on these risks so they can avoid data leaks or loss. It is equally important that staff know what the expectation is and actionable steps if they know of or suspect that PII was or could have been compromised in any way. Similar to physical building security, like Bob just talked about, we put policy, regulation, and practice in place to protect our students, staff, and families. And we hope we never have an incident, but would be ready if we do. Just like the physical building security has access rules with building entrances and protocols, similarly, we have firewalls and user access restrictions as well. Just like buildings practice lockdown drills for building security, we would continue to plan and practice for items like data recovery, common technology utilization, investigations of data breaches, and even send in our own simulated social engineering phishing emails as an educational mechanism. The guidelines and expectations are applicable to all employees in the district, and in a way they become our human firewalls in preventing data leaks and reporting any concerns. With the recommendation for this policy, I feel it is important we further ask why we should add this as a district policy and what is going on in the cybersecurity space, especially as it affects K-12. The K-12 cyber incident map on the screen has identified 447 incidents, and these are just reported incidents, since 2016 involving public schools across the United States. This is just those schools that have publicly reported from cybersecurity incident or breach. Nonetheless, the database of K-12 cybersecurity incidents is really incomplete because a lot of schools don't report those. The numbers continue to rise as data becomes increasingly valuable. Not only do we want to protect personally identifiable information in order to protect FERPA rights of all district patrons, but also to protect against other financial and safety concerns. On October 16th of 2017, the United States Department of Education released the following alert. New threat where the criminals are seeking to extort money from school districts and other educational institutions on the threat of releasing sensitive data from student records. In some cases, this has included threats of violence, shaming, or bullying children unless payment is received. This alert came in response to attacks by a hacker group by the name of Dark Overlord, who is commonly known for their compromise of the Netflix organization. In this instance, the group compromised data from K-12 schools, including a school in each of our neighboring states of Iowa and Montana, and sent threatening communications to families, causing safety concerns and even leading to school closures. Next, I'd like to take a brief time to discuss just a few tactics, attacks, and scams that hackers are attempting in order to breach security and fool district personnel into leaking information. I'm actually giving this same presentation next Monday at Lincoln High School to their cybersecurity class. So the first one there is phishing, spear phishing, or whaling. Often an email searching for user information, often on a link through a website portal. Spear phishing adds a level of trying to impersonate a specific person in a tactical way. Whaling often includes an intimidating request for urgent assistance while encouraging confidentiality. And just happened to be this last weekend we were busy with this one, that we had several of those go out, but from all I hear that they detected them pretty good. So. 1.4 million phishing websites are created monthly, and 25% of those use HTTPS. The S meaning secure, not safe. If you intentionally send information through a secure site, it still ends up in the unintended location. The bad guys in the middle just can't get it in the transfer of the bad guys on the end. Next one is farming, typo squatting, or URL hijacking. Again, trying to phish user credentials. You're trying to get account information by simulating a similar domain name as the actual site that as individuals enter their information. A common example is like Wells Fargo is one of the top ones. They'll do like wellsfargo.com or something. Look exactly the same, but they want your credentials so they can use them. Social engineering for PII information are scams such as simulating to be someone else or creating scenarios to gain physical or electronic access. This is especially easy in the K-12 world where we post all of our board minutes out online, so that they can easily gain information to make those look real convincing. Unencrypted storage or spoof storage, small jump drives that get misplaced as we hand those little jump drives out. It just happens to be it slips out of our hands or we forget it somewhere. But also now they're creating charging cables that they want you to charge your phone or your computer that actually has software on it to run some kind of ransomware. It looks just like an iPhone or an Android cable, but it actually installs the software to ransomware your personal identifiable information. Malware, scareware, ransomware are types of malicious software designed to cause disruption, steal data, or block access to essential data. Worst case examples in another district that a teacher actually got ransomware on her computer. They didn't ask her for money to basically restore the data. They asked her to convince her IT department to install it on the whole network, and then they'd give her data back in this scenario. So they use a lot of different tactical ways to try to spread their message. Impersonation and phishing, simulating the identity of another person or group. We often see this even through a phone call, trying to convince people to give over the information on a phone call without knowing who they are. I think a lot of you remember last year in the city of Sioux Falls had a fraudulent invoice even where they tried to convince them and they paid that invoice. So we try to train our users, to recognize those things. Weak account authentication. We in the district look at our password security and see how we're meeting the goals of some of the things that the hackers are trying to accomplish through trying to figure out what our passwords are. Up there is just one of those examples of what we can try and do with multi-factor authentication, or in that case, which password is more inclined to prevent against a hack. It's actually the second one where there's spaces and just that many more characters. When hackers are using a computerized password guessing application at 1,000 guesses a second, it would take the following times to steal that. If you use that first one, even though it's got special characters, uppers and lowers, with a computer application, you could have it hacked in 3 days. And then the second one, where it has spaces and it's just that much longer, 550 years. This slide shows the percentages of primary incident types for all types of cyber attacks that schools experienced in 2018. And again, these were the reported ones. Unauthorized disclosure or breach being the highest with 46.72% of those. The one I haven't mentioned so far is the DDoS. It's not necessarily trying to grab our information, but more trying to disrupt our service, so shutting down our internet connection from the outside is what that one is. So not only do I want to tell you about the doom and gloom of what they're trying to do, but I also want to tell you at a 10,000-foot view what we're trying to do to prevent them from doing that. I'll really stay at a 10,000-foot view because just like what Bob does with his security stuff, I don't want to give anybody my playbook by any means of what we're trying to accomplish. We do have an extensive hardware, software, network, and endpoint protection plan that is deployed and monitored carefully on our network. We provide resources through our technology integration facilitator to train our staff. In the fall, we provided a cybersecurity training course for all of our admin, IPC staff, and central services staff. We'll be extending this program to our teaching staff during the district in-service time at the end of this school year. We partner with the Department of Homeland Security, where they are continually scanning our network for any vulnerabilities. This partnership extends to the state, where we enlist the help of SDN's 24/7 network for firewall monitoring services. Finally, we strive to implement the best practice FERPA measures with both user access control and process logistics. Although I feel we have one of the most extensive K-12 cybersecurity action plans in this area, we also are likely one of the biggest targets due to our pure size. So all that information to provide you a framework for the actual policy and set the expectation of the goal of the Sioux Falls School District is to eliminate security incidents and avoid any breach of district data. Thus, all district employees are required to immediately report to the Director of Information Technology Services when they know or suspect that a breach of system security has occurred. Along with that, we have the regulation and definitions that go along. They closely follow the recommendations that were put in place in South Dakota Codified Law, Chapter 22-40-19 through 22-40-26, which falls under identity crimes. The regulation will provide guidelines and expectations of what to do in the instance of a data breach by clearly defining the steps and action that would be required. So in that regulation, the incident response kind of starts the process. This is a very important step, as a cyber breach isn't always a disaster, but mishandling it is. So we would identify and remedy any weaknesses as step one in this process as we go through our incident response. We mitigate any harmful effects. We minimize future risk, determine who or what caused the incident, and then do a thorough investigation. With the data breach, if it would be in the instance of a ransomware attack, for instance, we would recover as much data as possible with the idea that we also do have data backups in the district, and we have disaster recovery in the district as well. Then we'd go through the process documenting any steps we take. We really want to dot our I's and cross our T's in this process to make sure, and thus the reason we want this regulation in place. We also want to learn from any mistakes that happened in the process. Finally, we will follow the protocols set by the state in this law for security breach notifications. As time permits and as it says in that law, we will notify our stakeholders. And in this regulation, we also include the content of what that regulation requires. Last but not least, preventing data breach or PII loss requires technology security, laws and policy, and education combined and put into practice in order for us to be successful. I ask that you acknowledge the report, and I'll stand by for questions.
Just two questions, and my second one might be more of a Todd Veet question, but so obviously our biggest vulnerability is through our staff because they have more access to our private information and so forth. But how vulnerable are we through students' access? Since they have student email through the state and Google Docs and all that. So how vulnerable are we there, and what do we do to teach them? Maybe,
Sure.
Yeah. Besides cybersecurity class, I guess.
Yep. Yeah, we're only as secure as our best practice. And so with students, a lot of times they don't contain the PII information, but their data may be important to them. So we do teach best practice and, try to get out education to them. A lot of that happens through our cybrarians, kind of have a protocol that there are some coursework they've done in the past, I know, to help implement some of that education.
Thank you. And my second question is, when you were talking about like ransomware and all that, I got to thinking about insurance policies and so forth. And so what do we have as a district for insurance regarding a cyber attack on our information?
Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Okay. Yeah, we do have a policy that's tied onto our overall district policy right now. We're in the process of reviewing that to make sure we understand exactly what that all covers, to make sure we feel comfortable with the coverage we have there, or is there other things out there?
We need to.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yep.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you.
Yep. Thank you.
Could I get a motion to acknowledge the report, please?
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? None.
Great stuff.
Scary stuff. And it's probably that it's above our head that we don't have more questions. So thank you for being on top of it, Michael. We appreciate that.
Thank you.
So, all right, we have a motion and second. No further discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Review and revision for policy to begin with.
Yes. We actually have several policies to go through tonight, so Carly and I actually decided to tag team here, so one of us didn't lose our voice with all of them. So I'll take the first set, review, revise, that are up. We have policy FD and its accompanying regulation, facilities funding. No changes there. GBED, tobacco-free schools, use by employees prohibited. We updated to include language on vapor products. JICG, tobacco-free schools, use by students prohibited, also updated to include language on vapor products. JLG and its accompanying regulation, instruction program for homeless students. We updated language to include an oral appeal process. And KF and its accompanying regulation, community staff, use of district facilities. We updated to include language on the use of vapor products. So with that, I move to approve the review revision of the above said policies and accompanying regulations.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
All right, and I will take the next group. So again, we have several policies here that, due to the nature of the changes that we are suggesting, or that some of them are new, we are asking that they come back again. So this will be the first reading of this group of policies. The first one is a new policy that doesn't have a name. I don't think it's really called TBD and TBDR. I think it just doesn't have a name yet. And that's the one that Michael Christopherson just gave us that information about. So that's the data breach of personal or protected identifiable information. So this would be brand new to us. So all that information is out online. Next, we have GBEB, Code of Conduct. There are quite a few changes that were made. There's a code of conduct for each level of student. And so some of the highlights would be including audio or video recordings of an employee, supervisor, or other person without their knowledge would be unethical conduct. There are some other language changes, so I would encourage people to take a look at that one as well. KEB, KEBR, public concern, complaints about personnel. Again, some language changes of updating resolution options when complaints are received by a principal or supervisor about an employee. IMDB and IMDBR, flag displays and patriotic activities. With recent legislation that was passed, there's a new requirement, and so this is addition to that policy. So updating that language about the national motto being displayed in our schools to comply with the new state statute. The next one is JKR, student discipline, suspension, and expulsion. So again, updating a lot of language regarding discipline for disruptions, vapor products like we talked about on the other ones, threats of school shootings, and clean up some consequences that didn't necessarily make sense for the language that was in there. So again, please take a look at that one. JJIR, student athletics and activities, updating language to current practice. And JCAR, assignment of students to schools, open enrollment, and non-resident students, updating address verification language and adding class capacity information to that specific policy. So again, these are all first reading, so they will require a second reading, which means that there is time for feedback for the next 30 or so days. This will come back to our June 10th board meeting. You can view these all online at the district website and provide any feedback, questions, concerns that you have regarding those. And so with that, I would ask that we just acknowledge the first reading of these policies, knowing again that they will come back on June 10th for us with feedback.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion? All right, hearing none. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Next item on the agenda is a resolution to establish the Sioux Empire Leadership Council. As we brought to work session a month or so ago, 2 months ago, Cynthia and I have been involved in the discussion on the part of the City of Sioux Falls, Minnehaha, and Lincoln County, the sheriff's office of both, the councils, the commissions on both, Sanford, Avera, Chamber of Commerce, Community Foundation, has spent a lot of time discussing the need to kind of try and have all public and some of the larger private employers on the same page when there are opportunities, when there are challenges, and the resolution that we have before us is the school district's resolution to be a participant in that. And each one of the organizations that is listed on that resolution is going to be bringing this to their appropriate board or commission meeting, and then this would not really begin until June or July, I think,
Summer, yeah.
sometime during the summer. So the resolution is there, and I would ask for a motion to approve the resolution to establish the Sioux Empire Leadership Council.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, discussion.
I think it's a great idea to get people from lots of different organizations together, kind of working towards that same mission of making our community and our schools and our businesses and everything within Sioux Falls to be a stronger force. So I think it's a great step in the right direction.
What will the makeup of the council look like?
So the listed entities that are on the resolution, will be a member from each of them,
Okay.
and they will each have one voting member. And you notice that, like, Community Foundation is not on here because their board doesn't have to approve, but so it's all these entities. And then what the nature of the board will be or council, I should say, will be to look at issues in the community and come up with solutions and ideas to address them, and also be able to, if there was a grant, for example, to apply, they would come together and apply for grants, so we wouldn't have to each as our board. But it doesn't stop any of these entities individually applying for grants or doing anything on their own that best serves. This is just for something that they as a council think is something that needs all of these team players together to go forward. And right now, the big issue they're looking at is the triage center is kind of what was the impetus of this. They received a grant, Aaron Surska's administering, that will pay for basically the first now 18 months. It was 2 years, but now we've been 6 months into the process of meetings and so forth. So there's no monetary out from us at this point. And kind of at the end of that 2-year time frame, all of us can look at this and see, was this worth our time and effort? Now, do we want to continue it? And that's what we'll be going down.
So what I guess I would foresee is after July, when the board reorganizes and committee assignments are set up, then that committee or that assignment would be added as a committee assignment for a board member, not.
Yep, and we can have an alternate. So like, say you were it and you couldn't go to that meeting, and that person can have voting, right?
So it's a board member, not necessarily the superintendent.
This is a board member entity, yeah.
It's a board member.
Yep.
Okay.
I feel like the insurance committee, where you've got
Yep.
the voting member, and if they can't be there, then.
Exactly, and they have the right to vote on that, and each entity will have the same type of thing.
Right.
Okay.
And our thinking, I guess, or as the organizational meetings were taking place, the reason it's a board member is we're not committing to spend any of the school district's dollars on this. It's more philosophical, and how do we see ourselves fitting in? And my hope would be that whoever the board member is that sits on it would have conversation on a regular basis with Dr. Maher, the superintendent, to make sure that we're speaking with one voice as we move forward on it. Okay?
Thank you.
Great way to communicate and be transparent with everybody. That was like great.
Okay. Any other conversation? Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Before we entertain a motion to go into executive session, I would like to thank Michael Christofferson, who's hiding back there in the corner, for his service to the school district over the time that he has been here. He'll be leaving us the end of June, and any of you sitting over along that wall would be a huge loss, and Michael would certainly be in the category of a huge loss to our school district. I fully understand your reasons for making the decision. I respect those, but you will be missed as an employee of the district. Thank you for your service and your work. Yep. Okay. Motion to go into executive
I
session.
move to go into executive session 1-25-22 and 1-25-24.
Okay. We have a motion. We need a second and vote on that? Yeah, that's right. I've only been doing this for a few times. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We will go into executive session. Thank you all.